What do A Quiet Place, The Book of Eli, and The Terminator have in common? It's the end of the world as we know it. Thanks for coming to my YouTube channel, Movie Reviews for You. And today I'm talking about Homestead. Saw it last night with my husband and daughter. It is prepped for an incredible storyline, explosive production value, characters that you want to survive. However, I think it prepared a little too much. Stick around and find out why. First of all, we have an incredible, engaging storyline. This is your typical apocalyptic, end of the world movie in terms of everything's ending. The movie starts off with a bomb. We don't know if it's nuclear. All of Los Angeles is losing their power. It's chaos on the streets. You have Ian and Jenna and their family who own the homestead. So Ian Ross is a survivalist. He has this amazing territory and he is prepared for anything and everything, which is exactly what's about to happen. Ian has hired Jeff Erickson, who is a former special ops, to protect the homestead. So Jeff, his family, and then a whole other bunch of special ops, they come out to protect this area. So the story continues. It's super engaging. At the beginning, you're seeing all the chaos on the streets, everybody trying to get where they need to go. You have also Ian's sister-in-law and family that are trying to make their way to the homestead. Super engaging premise, very action-packed. And then next you have the explosive production value. So I know people that are a little bit more hesitant about watching faith-based films because they think the production value is not that great. While I would agree with them, we have a lot of people coming into the scene that are producing incredible movies. So Angel Studios produced this, and they are certainly gaining a reputation for incredibly well done movies. This is one of them. So they also did Sound of Freedom, also a wonderful movie worth checking out, but be prepared to just be gripped, and it's very hard to watch. Okay, back to Homestead. So explosive production value. Again, you have this bomb, you have the reaction of these families in Los Angeles. I was blown away at the beginning at how well it was done. I have not researched yet whatever special effects that they did to see this. Again, you have Ian's sister-in-law and her kids that are making their way to the homestead, but just even how they show it in the clouds and in the background with all the catastrophe, it's amazing. I've heard it said that for filmmaking, if you like filmmaking and like the ins and outs, if you kind of lose track of what's happening, like in terms of the making of the film, then they gotcha. Then it's a really well done movie. So I was so engaged in it at the beginning that I did lose track really of how did they do that? Well, that's very interesting. So incredible production value, and for that reason alone, I would highly recommend it. It is a faith-based film. I'm totally in favor of as a Christian, so I think they are really producing high quality stuff. So I would recommend it because it is faith-based and again, very gripping story. And that leads us to characters that you want to survive. This is where I'm going to get into saying a little bit of my criticism with it. You have so many characters that are introduced. For any film to work, it really needs these classic 3 structure phases. So like you have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and typically you have some type of bad guy. It's usually a person, or it can be a force, doesn't have to be an actual person, but there have to be really high stakes. Obviously, this movie, there's really high stakes. It's the end of the world. They want to survive. And you have really great characters that you're introduced to, and there's really great characters along the way, but then they're kind of left off. Like there's a lot going on, and we walked away thinking, wow, they did an amazing job. Who am I, right? Talking about videos and criticizing them, but you know that something is lacking. So it wasn't the characters. There's great characters. They have a lot of depth. And even though it's faith-based, me personally, I would have liked more of that. I think there's subtle hints of it, but it's not enough really to whet my appetite. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but I think they could have gone a lot deeper. But you have all of these characters. There's a really telling scene where there's a tragedy. I don't want to give it away. It's probably my favorite scene of the movie. But with the tragedy, you have the Jeff's son, you have him with another guy, and you think there's this friendship with this guy, and then the guy trails off. But there are all kinds of characters like that. You have a special ops guy that is encouraging Jeff to take over, and he's been out of shape and he's mad. You have a couple hints of this throughout, but they never really develop it. So you have all of these characters and all of these things that happen, they're not really developed. And you have a bad guy per se, the end of the world, but you don't really have a very strong enemy yet. Which leads me to my last point. I think it packed and prepped a little bit too much. So when I go to a movie, I don't really research it a lot. And sometimes I don't even watch the trailer because I like to be fully engaged. But my recommendation is maybe research it a little bit more than I did. So this movie was actually meant to help propel a TV series. And for some reason, I was expecting it to be like a story that had depth and that was wrapped up, and that was it. But they didn't wrap up a lot of things. And I'm sure that's intentional. At the end of the movie, one of the actors comes on and you can pay it forward. You can buy a ticket for somebody else and see their first episode, which is great. But I did feel just slightly misled. And maybe that's because I'm not familiar with launching a series by a movie. So many things. For example, again, when the family, Jeff and his family are first going, like there's engaging scenes, they're at a grocery store and like people are fighting and just all the things that you would think it'd be, like just complete chaos. And then the wife, she comes in, Tara, to the car and she has antibiotics for her son because she doesn't want him to get sick. And like you never hear anything else about that the whole entire movie. So my daughter, who is a book connoisseur, she was talking about a storyline. And with stories, you have promises, but if they're not fulfilled, you leave your reader or your viewer a little bit disappointed. And I call it in the movie world setups. Like you have these things that are setups that are going to have a payoff. And there are a lot of setups that did not have payoffs. So again, that antibiotics thing, you have this uncle character, again, the sister-in-law's husband, who they mentioned that he's off his meds, but then he's not really seen again in the movie. You have, again, this other family that knows the owners of the homestead, Ian and Jenna, but that's not really developed either. Again, I get it. They are preparing for a TV show, but as a moviegoer, I expected it to be a lot more depth. So you have a main character that's injured. I won't spoil that either. And then we're expecting like a whole nother plot line, but it never really happens. So the movie kind of ended. So it fizzled out. So again, there were some things, some gaps, but kudos to Angel Studios. Kudos to doing a thriller. How many faith-based thrillers do we know? Not many. So all of that said, I would highly recommend it because I believe in wholesome, family-friendly, faith-based movies. This did have violence. Interesting plugged-in reviews. Excellent source if you've never been there for movie reviews. And they gave moderate level for teens. So it wasn't like light warning. It wasn't like heavy warning. It was moderate, which I thought was interesting because I thought the violence was not super extreme. So I probably would have given it a light for teens, definitely moderate for kids. But like I said, I took my teenage daughter and I didn't think it was too much at all. So go watch it. If you want to put in the comments what you think, that would be great. And happy to report that I'm going to see Sonic next week. So stay tuned for the next movie review.